House Bill 1174. This legislation seeks to amend and reenact section of the Code of Virginia relating to assault firearms purchase, age requirement, penalty. Legislation reported to the Committee on Public Safety with amendment nature substitute, subsequently reported by the Committee on Appropriations.
Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sickles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the committee substitute.
Shall the substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The substitute is agreed to.
Mr. Speaker, HB 1174 raises the age to purchase an assault weapon from 18 to 21. As a reminder, a federal prohibition prohibits handguns to be sold to anyone under 21 years old, and this bill would bring assault weapons in line with that standard. 8 states already have the age to purchase assault rifles as 21, including Florida. 18 to 20 years old individuals commit homicides at a rate of triple of those for older adults. Examples of mass shootings by 18 or 20-year-olds are unfortunately places where we all know about now: Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, where the shooter purchased a gun legally. He was 19, killed 17 people, injured 17 more. Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, where the shooter was 18. He bought the gun legally, killed 21 people, 18 were injured. Top Supermarket in Buffalo, where the shooter purchased the gun legally. He killed 10 people and injured 3. And of course, Sandy Hook Elementary School, the shooter was 20 years old, purchased a gun legally. 27 people died and 2 were injured. And I hope that it'll be the will of the body to engross this measure and pass it on to its 3rd reading.
Delegate from Culpeper, Delegate Freitas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaking of the bill.
Delegate has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, again, I can appreciate everyone's attempts and desires to be able to prevent people from using firearms inappropriately. I think what I take issue with is, once again, we're not targeting people that have actually done something wrong or have done something wrong that may be a threat in the future. We're now targeting an entire group of people aged 18 to 20. And we're suggesting that people aged 18 and 20 don't possess the mental capacity, perhaps, to be able to own not only a pistol or handgun, but also what we're calling an assault rifle. And again, I want everyone to understand, an assault rifle, semi-automatic rifle, you put a pistol grip on it, all of a sudden it's an assault rifle. You have an adjustable stock, all of a sudden an assault rifle. And the part that seems disingenuous to me from a philosophical level is that for the last 2 decades, we were taking a bunch of 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, and we were sending them overseas to fight, and they made up a significant portion of our casualties, and they all swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. They went overseas, they fought, many of them didn't come home, but it's fascinating to me that so many of the ones that do come home, now we're telling them this is a whole category of a constitutionally protected right that no longer applies to you because we don't feel you're mature enough to have this right. You are mature enough to go to basic training, to go overseas, to fight, to die, but you're not mature enough to do this. And I think it's a little bit insulting, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Simon.
Mr. Speaker, speaking to the bill.
Delegate has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, a couple things about this. Let me start, I guess, with this idea that, I'm choosing my words carefully here. We move quickly. I don't want to be careful about how I say this. We don't let just any 18, 19, or 20-year-old join the military. And we don't let every 18, 19, or 20-year-old who wants one carry a gun. I went through a process of not enlisting, but going into the Army, and I had to go through a psychological background check. I had to go through a series of medical history. I had all kinds of checks and background and security clearances and things I had to go through. I then before I would be handed a firearm, even as a lawyer, I had to go through a weapons familiarization course. I had to go to the range. I had to spend time. I had to learn how to actually fire it, learn how it worked. As some of you all would say, I had to learn which end the round came out of, right? I had to have that basic weapons familiarization, right? When we try and put those sorts of restrictions on firearm purchases and who can carry and so forth, you tell us we're being excessive. We're limiting people's rights. We're applying tests and competency tests and requirements to a basic right. And Mr. Speaker, that's just not the case. And there are all kinds of things, by the way, that we restrict 18, 19, and 20-year-olds to do. And we do we treat them in juvenile justice system, right? We have a different way of doing things for people at different stages of their brain development. I think this is an appropriate thing to do. Now, hopefully this bill becomes moot. Hopefully our House Bill 2, which we passed and signed into law, will take effect and become the law in Virginia, and we won't have to worry about the age for anybody carrying an assault weapon in Virginia, and that's my hope for what happens. But I think this bill is necessary, important, and appropriate, and will increase the public safety for the vast majority of Virginians, because we won't just let any 18, 19, or 20-year-old who wants to walk around carrying an assault firearm. I hope it'll be the pleasure of the body to engross the bill, or handgun, and we'll hope it'll be the pleasure of the body to pass the bill and engross the bill and pass it to its third reading.
Delegate from Culpeper, Delegate Freitas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the delegate yield for a question?
Which one?
Delegate Simon.
Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate
Fairfax.
Simon, will you yield for a
I
question?
yield.
Delegate yield.
Mr. Speaker, just one simple question. Can the delegate please show me in this legislation where there's an exception, a carve-out, for all the people that have gone through everything that he just described, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, I would tell the delegate that if he had such an amendment, or the governor wants to put an amendment on like that at the end, that would be something to be entertained, but this bill doesn't contain such an exception.
Mr. Speaker, speaking to the bill.
Delegate has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, if this really was, okay, we just want this sort of training to be involved, well, then that could have been offered. And I'm willing to bet, I'm a little suspicious that if the government put that amendment on, something tells me that the delegate from Fairfax would not support that amendment. I could be wrong. But once again, this isn't, I think we need to be very careful about telling an entire generation of young Americans it's perfectly acceptable for us to send you off to war, to fight, to die, but then when you come home, we don't believe you have the mental capacity or competence to be able to exercise these rights, which you exercised very effectively overseas. So if we're going to restrict these sorts of rights, maybe we should also restrict who we can send to war and what age they can be when we do so, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sickles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaking to the bill.
Delegate has the floor.
I want to tell the gentleman I would be happy to accept the governor's amendment, so let's settle that issue. And secondly, I have no problem with 18-year-olds joining the military and protecting our country, going through the training they go through. If they're accepted into the military, you just can't walk into the military, as the gentleman said, and learning to protect our country and taking their guns, and they learn how to handle these safely. They lock them up at night. You can't even carry one around a military base. And so it's a completely different issue. And I'm very happy for any 18-year-old who joins the military to learn how to carry one of these weapons safely. But we have a public emergency, a crisis on our hands, and this is one way that we can help solve it, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Shall the bill be engrossed and pass its third reading? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The bill